you went through the most horrific abuse. Why did you not expose your mum's lies to the police? Why did you take it as far as what you did?
Honestly, I didn't know the extent of the abuse myself. Some things were very obvious, like the physical abuse. But there was other things in the medical abuse side of it that if it wasn't very visual, like my mother said I had cancer. You can't see cancer. And my mother was telling, myself and others that I was on cancer medication. So there was things like those little things that I didn't even know until upon arrest after the crime.
I remember the phone was I couldn't really dial 911 because I'm sorry.
Shaking.
Yeah, I was shaking it, so I was trying to dial 911, but I couldn't even get my thumb to press the buttons because I was shaking so bad. But I was trying to calm down. Thank you so much. I was trying to calm down so I could to do it, and then I finally pressed it, and then they answered. I literally never talked to somebody on the phone.
I got kind of in a fetal position and I covered my ears. And I heard my mom wake up. And then she sounded startled. And there was some noises that I can't make out. And I heard her say my name a couple times. And she said, "Help me." And then there was just silence.
Now this girl right here, Jordan Turpin, that is a true victim. That is someone who survived severe childhood abuse. She didn't even know how to use a telephone, but yet she had the courage to get her hands on a phone and dial 911 without ever having spoken to somebody on a phone ever. Think about that. Think about how she reacted in this interview. She couldn't even get the words out. Gypsy Rose never had that reaction. Gypsy Rose could use a cell phone. She could use a telephone, and she never called for help. So again, when people say to me, "How do you not see a victim?" I don't see a victim in Gypsy Rose. However, you can definitely see the victim in Jordan Turpin.
Do you miss your mom, Dee Dee?
Yeah, I miss my mom.
When you look back, do you think there are ways that this could have been handled differently?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I look at things in hindsight and I realized that there were other options besides murder, but I was so sheltered that I couldn't see them at the time.
Have you ever wondered if maybe everything that you know about Gypsy Rose Blanchard was carefully crafted to make you believe just one side of the story? For years, she's been the face of survival, a fragile girl trapped by her domineering and abusive mother, Dee Dee Blanchard. The documentaries, tearful interviews, and dramatized TV specials have all painted Gypsy as a tragic heroine who overcame a monstrous ordeal. But what if that's only scratching the surface? Today, we're diving into the other side of Gypsy's story, a side riddled with manipulation, calculated moves, and a narrative that might not be as innocent as it seems. Gypsy didn't just escape her nightmare, some say she masterminded an even darker one. From her secret relationship with Nicholas Gaudejean to the public's perception, Gypsy's role may be far more intricate than anyone realized. Let's rewind to the story we all thought we knew. Gypsy was presented as a victim of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, subjected to years of fabricated illnesses and total dependence on her mother. Dee Dee controlled her life, from doctor's visits to public appearances, weaving an illusion of perpetual sickness. When Gypsy finally broke free, it culminated in the shocking murder of Dee Dee, a moment heralded as her ultimate liberation. But here's where the cracks start to show. Gypsy wasn't just a passive player in her escape. Behind the scenes, she was secretly plotting with Nicholas, a boyfriend she met online, exchanging messages that laid out a chilling plan. Court documents and interviews revealed a far more composed and calculating side of Gypsy than the one portrayed in media coverage. Was she the helpless victim or the puppet master pulling the strings? Nicholas, who committed the murder, claimed Gypsy manipulated him into doing her bidding. His testimony painted a picture of a girl who used her charm to twist the narrative and ensure she came out looking like the survivor everyone wanted her to be. And the media? They eagerly played into it, framing her as the brave escapee while glossing over the more unsettling details.
She was deeply involved with it. I mean, just like it says in his police statements, like I said, right with while I was talking to them, there was latex gloves that be on the porch. She did say that. Right on the text is clear as day. I ended up finding them when I got there, and I let her know that I was at the door. She opened the door, and she made sure I had the gloves on before she gave me the weapon, and she made sure that she wouldn't let me open the door. She made sure I had those gloves on before either of those doors opened.
This isn't to diminish the abuse Gypsy endured. She was undoubtedly a victim. But was she also a skilled manipulator, using her tragic circumstances as a shield? Could her sympathetic image have been a way to control not just Nicholas, but public opinion and the justice system itself? The truth about Gypsy Rose Blanchard is anything but simple. It's a story of survival, yes, but also of premeditation and manipulation.
My mother would often tell other people and tell me that I would only have a life expectancy of 7, and then it was 15, and then it was 20. I think to some degree I knew it was a facade. However, I didn't know the malicious intent behind the facade.
What if the girl you thought was the ultimate symbol of innocence and suffering wasn't so innocent after all? Gypsy Rose Blanchard captured public sympathy with her frail image. Bald head, oversized glasses, and a wheelchair that seemed to tell the story of a life plagued by unimaginable tragedy. She was the sweet, soft-spoken girl everyone rooted for, battling a laundry list of illnesses from cancer to muscular dystrophy to epilepsy. Her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, painted the picture perfectly. A devoted caregiver sacrificing everything for her chronically ill daughter. The world bought it, showering them with charity donations, dream vacations, and even free housing. But behind the heartbreaking narrative was a darker, more calculated truth that few saw coming. For years, Gypsy played the role of the perfect victim. She wore wigs to cover her supposedly chemo-ravaged scalp, posed for photos that tugged at heartstrings, and graciously accepted the perks of their fabricated life. Trips to Disneyland, meet and greets with celebrities, a brand new house funded by donations. It all seemed like a small reprieve for a girl who had been through so much. But Gypsy wasn't just a passive participant in this facade. Behind the wheelchair and the sob stories was a girl who understood the game her mother was playing and at times leaned into the role herself. Sure, Dee Dee orchestrated most of the deception, but let's not act like Gypsy was clueless. Court documents, medical records, and even Gypsy's own words reveal a young woman who became increasingly comfortable in the lie. It's hard to ignore the moments where she fully embraced her public persona, knowing it came with rewards. Yes, she was under Dee Dee's control, a control so intense it bordered on abuse. But Gypsy also knew what staying in that wheelchair and donning that wig meant. It meant no hard decisions, no hard truths, and no real life outside the walls of their carefully curated bubble. So, was Gypsy simply a puppet, manipulated by her mother's lies? Or was she a complicit player who saw the benefits and chose to stay silent? That's the question that starts to haunt you as the layers of this story begin to unravel. And unravel they did, leading to a shocking crime that would expose the truth behind the Blanchards' picture-perfect tragedy.
People saying you're handcuffs, they give you this weird look, and I'm like, I can't trying to think. I'm like, okay, no, I didn't kill anybody, I don't do drugs, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I didn't do nothing. I'm a good girl.
And just when you thought this story couldn't get any darker, it takes a chilling twist. After the brutal murder of her mother, Gypsy was brought into an interrogation room, her fate hanging in the balance. In a moment that caught investigators, and later the public, completely off guard, she proclaimed, "I didn't do anything wrong. I'm a good girl. I didn't kill nobody." This statement, defiant yet haunting, raised immediate questions. Was Gypsy a vulnerable victim caught in unimaginable circumstances? Or was there something more sinister lurking beneath the surface? The case that had already shocked the nation suddenly took a new and unsettling direction, leaving everyone desperate to uncover the truth.
However, if you actually do some research and watch her interviews, she's not a good person. She's a master manipulator, and she learned by the best one there was, her mother. There's literally an interview where she's like, I learned to be the best liar with no conscience, no remorse, nothing, best manipulator from my mother. She learned all her tricks from her mother. If you watch her videos, anytime they ask about her ex-boyfriend, who her mom for her, just threw his whole entire life away, has life in prison, she's like, can't worry about that.
Gypsy Rose Blanchard's story has always been painted as a tale of survival and tragedy, but let's be real, it's far more complicated than that. For years, she lived under the oppressive lies spun by her mother, Dee Dee, convincing doctors, friends, and even law enforcement that she was terminally ill. But here's what often gets left out. Gypsy didn't just go along with these lies out of fear. She actively used them to her advantage. Sympathy, gifts, and unwavering support rolled in, all while she maintained the charade. And when the chance to escape finally came, Gypsy didn't choose to tell the truth or seek help. She didn't opt for a clean break from the deceit. Instead, she orchestrated a plan that left Dee Dee dead. It's a move that speaks volumes about the role manipulation played throughout her life, both as a victim and as a perpetrator. The question is, how do we reconcile the survival instincts of a young woman trapped in a nightmare with the cold, calculated decisions she made when freedom was within reach?
What is evil is that Gypsy Rose Blanchard used a man with autism, a low IQ, and other mental health issues that was collecting a disability check permanently to unalive her mom. She manipulated him for over 2.5 years. That is what evil is.
Reality has a way of being darker than any fiction, and Gypsy Rose's story is proof. For years, she wasn't just playing the victim. She was orchestrating a con so intricate that when it began to unravel, the fallout would leave a trail of blood. Gypsy made a choice, one that turned deception into destruction. At the center of her plan was Nicholas Gaudejon, a man who wasn't prepared for the role he'd play in this twisted tale. Nicholas wasn't just her boyfriend. He was a man living with autism, a low IQ, and a history of mental health struggles that left him clinging to the edges of stability, dependent on disability checks, and navigating a world that often felt impossible to understand. Nicholas was searching for something simple: love and validation. That desperation made him the perfect target. Vulnerable, trusting, and eager to please, Nicholas became the linchpin of Gypsy's scheme, a pawn in a game far bigger and far more dangerous than he could ever have imagined.
Because I went from one abusive person to another. I wish he would have been more responsible or told that I could walk.
What started out as harmless flirtation and fantasy role-playing quickly morphed into something far darker. This is the twisted tale of manipulation, vulnerability, and betrayal, where trust became a deadly weapon. Over the course of 2.5 years, Gypsy Rose Blanchard and Nicholas Gaudejon's relationship began innocently enough, with playful messages and shared fantasies. But beneath the surface, things quickly took a disturbing turn. Gypsy, known for her vulnerability, didn't see it as a weakness. She saw it as a tool, an opportunity to manipulate. Rather than asking Nicholas for help to escape her abusive life with her mother, Dee Dee, Gypsy had a much more sinister request. She didn't want to break free. She wanted Dee Dee dead. What started as a seemingly innocent connection evolved into a chilling plot, with Gypsy masterminding the murder of her own mother through her influence over Nicholas. In the end, the lines between love, manipulation, and murder became dangerously blurred.
Let's also talk about the fact that she sent Nicholas Gaudejon, a man with autism, with a low IQ collecting permanent disability, a video instructing him how to unalive her mom.
A chilling video sent by Gypsy to Nicholas is raising serious questions and sending shockwaves through the investigation. Could this footage be the proof everyone's been waiting for? In this unsettling video, Gypsy walks through her mother's bedroom, casually pointing out where Diddy sleeps. But what makes this footage so damning isn't just the setting, it's what happens next. Gypsy goes on to describe the act of stabbing in detail, leaving absolutely no room for interpretation. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment crime. It was cold, calculated, and premeditated. What's even more chilling is the realization that Gypsy knew exactly what she was doing, and more importantly, she knew Nicholas would do anything for her. This wasn't just about revenge, it was a carefully executed plan, one that depended on Nicholas's unwavering loyalty.
Texted him when my mother went to sleep. I let him in the door. There were gloves waiting for him, plastic gloves, by the door.
You put them there?
I put them there. He came in, and he was wearing a hoodie and dark clothing and a scary t-shirt that had evil clowns on it. And I handed him the knife, and he said, "Get your ass in the bathroom now." And I went in the bathroom, closed the door behind me, and kind of got down in a kneeling position and put my hands over my ears so I couldn't hear anything.
The level of manipulation required to convince someone to commit murder is chilling. Gypsy didn't just ask Nicholas to kill her mother. She made him believe it was his duty. She spun a twisted narrative, portraying herself as the damsel in distress, with Nicholas as her knight in shining armor, rescuing her from a wicked captor. Nicholas, who already struggled with social cues and understanding consequences, was easily led to believe he was doing the right thing. But once the deed was done, Gypsy didn't hesitate to throw him under the bus. During her interrogation, she pointed the finger at Nicholas, claiming he was the one who did it, not her. "I can't kill anyone," she said. But let's not forget, she unlocked that door, led him inside, and orchestrated the entire plan. Gypsy may not have wielded the knife, but she wielded the power, and she used it with cold precision.
I opened the door 3 times, scratched the door twice, and that was code to let him in. But before I could let him in, he commanded me that I must shave my legs and any body hair and present myself to him naked.
Never away.
Okay, what happened?
She wanted to shave her private part.
Okay.
And her legs.
Okay, she wanted to shave her private part and her legs?
Yes, for me.
Okay. She ever done that before? Is this something new?
Usually her mom does not let her shave her legs.
This shocking story takes us into the dark and twisted world of manipulation, power, and control. It's the kind of tale where nothing is as it seems, and every move feels calculated, down to the most intimate of details. But what happens when the power dynamics are flipped, and someone takes charge with chilling precision? Before the murder, Gypsy Rose Blanchard's actions were anything but random. In fact, every move she made was part of a carefully crafted plan. Nicholas Gaudijon, the man she ultimately conspired with, told her she needed to shave her legs and present herself to him naked. And in a chilling turn, Gypsy did just that, following his instructions not out of fear, but because it was all part of her strategy. She knew exactly how to keep Nicholas under her thumb, how to make him feel powerful, and how to use that to her advantage. In this twisted game of control, it wasn't just about manipulation, it was about getting everything she wanted. And she did.
Why did she tell you you were going in a wheelchair?
I did get into a motorcycle accident with my grandfather, and it skinned my knee. And she took me to the hospital and then told me that the doctor gave her a wheelchair, and I have to be in a wheelchair now.
Forever.
Forever. She had me use a walker before the wheelchair, and then after that motorcycle accident, put in the wheelchair.
Why did she tell you you had to be on a walker?
She said that I had muscular dystrophy.
But did you feel any different the day before you got the walker than the day you did have the walker?
No, sir.
You were able to run around?
Pretty much, yes.
And would you forget to get it and run into the kitchen?
There would be times that I'd forget to grab it and then go to walk, and then my mom would catch me and be like, use your walker.
Nicholas, now serving life in prison, would have never committed this horrific crime without Gypsy's influence. But here's the kicker. Gypsy, the one who masterminded it all, is serving just 10 years. A mere fraction of the time compared to what Nicholas faces. And yet, some still question whether she was also a victim. But that couldn't be further from the truth. This wasn't just manipulation. This was cold, calculated exploitation. Gypsy understood Nicholas's weaknesses and used them to her advantage, with devastating consequences. Nicholas is paying the price, while Gypsy's role in the tragedy is too often downplayed. Despite her claims of being a good girl, the evidence tells a very different story. Her actions before, during, and after the crime reveal a much more sinister reality. This wasn't someone caught up in an uncontrollable situation. This was someone who methodically orchestrated a crime with chilling precision. Even after the crime, Gypsy leaned heavily into the victim narrative, painting herself as someone who had been abused and manipulated for years. But let's not be fooled. She had far more control over her life and her actions than anyone gave her credit for. It's time to stop pretending that Gypsy Blanchard was anything less than the mastermind of this tragedy. She wasn't just a pawn in a tragic game. She was the architect. And the real story needs to be told.
I'm glad that I'm out of that situation. She would force me to be in a wheelchair, force me to go to doctor's appointments that I didn't need.
Did you understand that you being sick was necessary to keep up what she built? Because you got a house, donations, you got different things from people for being sick. So that was a source of income for her.
And I had no idea that I was a part of that.
You didn't know that you were a cash cow?
No.
So did she tell you that you were intellectually challenged?
My mother told the doctors that I was mentally incompetent. It's got the mind of like a child. She told me if I was to contact anybody and tell them that she would take a hammer to my fingers. And she had taken handcuffs and a dog leash and tied it together and tied me to the bed. I just don't understand how somebody can do this to their child.
When it comes to Gypsy's claims of abuse, there's no denying the complexity of the situation. Sure, Dee Dee's behavior was controlling, there's no arguing that. But what if the narrative we've all believed doesn't quite tell the whole story? Dee Dee's actions might have crossed a line into unhealthy territory, but did Gypsy exaggerate the extent of her mother's behavior to paint herself as a sympathetic victim? Let's take a closer look. While Dee Dee was never formally diagnosed with a mental illness, the real twist comes from her medical records. Turns out, she was being treated for a chromosomal disorder called 1q21. Wandel syndrome, which could explain many of the health issues Gypsy claimed were a result of her mother's supposed mental illness. The fact is, many of the health problems Gypsy blamed on her mother's actions could be directly linked to this legitimate diagnosis, raising questions about whether Dee Dee's overbearing behavior was more the result of her condition than any kind of malicious intent. Now, despite this, Gypsy's portrayal of her mother was a powerful one. She took this narrative and ran with it, creating a story that cast her as a helpless girl trapped by her mother's alleged mental illness. Was Dee Dee controlling? Absolutely. But was Gypsy's version of events exaggerated to justify what she did? That's where things get complicated. What's so troubling is just how effectively Gypsy played on public sympathy. She knew exactly how to frame herself as the innocent, fragile girl who just wanted to escape her mother's grasp. Her story resonated with so many, but was it a carefully crafted tale to win the public's heart and justify her actions? In the end, we're left questioning just how much of Gypsy's narrative was built on truth and how much was a strategic manipulation of the media and public opinion.
Everything's hard. My son, Nick, his side of the story told, and because her side is getting all this attention left and right, and he can get nothing. I believe Gypsy was just using him. She may have had a slight feelings for him, but when she got him in, reeled him in to her plan, and she pretty much started losing interest in him until after D was done, and then boom, threw him under the bus. I felt compassion because of what her mother did to her, but and in retrospect, what she learned all those traits from her mom and turned around and used them on my son, and to get out of her situation. All the press and everything that was being focused on this case, it just made me become more of a hermit. I didn't want to leave the house. Afraid somebody's going to notice me and, hey, here, go to each other or whatever.
Gypsy wasn't some helpless, desperate victim. She was someone who had options. Options that didn't involve convincing a young man to kill for her. The sweet, innocent image she projected, that was just another layer of manipulation. When she claimed she wasn't involved, it wasn't because she had no idea what was happening. It was because she knew exactly how to make people believe her version of events. Take her infamous video where she tried to play the victim once again. She later claimed she wasn't in the right state of mind when she made it. But that excuse doesn't hold up. If Gypsy wasn't in the right state of mind, then how did she manage to plan the murder over 2.5 years? How was she able to convince Nicholas, a man who wasn't a criminal, to follow through with it? The video evidence doesn't lie. It shows a woman who was not only involved in planning the crime, but actively orchestrating it. Her not in the right state of mind excuse falls apart the moment you look at the timeline. Nicholas? He wasn't some cold-blooded killer. He thought he was helping the woman he loved escape an abusive situation. He believed she was his savior, his protector. Gypsy painted herself as the hero, and Nicholas believed every word. But once the deed was done, the truth came crashing down. Nicholas's father came forward, revealing that Gypsy had used his son as a pawn. Once her plan succeeded, she discarded him, leaving him to take the fall. Gypsy's behavior wasn't that of someone who was desperate or naive. It was the behavior of someone who knew exactly what she was doing and how to manipulate others to get what she wanted. And no amount of deflection or I wasn't in the right state of mind can change that truth.
Matter what Gypsy Rose calls herself. An author, an influencer, an advocate. Doesn't matter. No matter what people believe about her, victim. A fact about Gypsy Rose is that she is a convicted felon. She is, in fact, a convicted murderer. She did spend time in prison for this offense. So regardless of what she wants to call herself or what people want to think about her, that is a fact. So there's that.
Gypsy has spent years crafting a new identity, one that portrays her as an innocent and reformed woman. But the truth behind Dee Dee's death reveals a much darker tale. When Gypsy was interrogated about her involvement, she quickly distanced herself from the crime, claiming, "He's the one who did it, not me. I can't kill anyone." Yet, as the investigation unfolded, it became clear that Gypsy wasn't the helpless victim she'd painted herself to be. While Nicholas John may have physically carried out the murder, Gypsy was the one pulling the strings. She unlocked the door that night, ensuring Nicholas could enter. She created a video that guided him step by step on what to do, and she masterminded the entire plan. Even years after Dee Dee's death, Gypsy continues to manipulate the story. She has reinvented herself as an advocate, an author, and a woman who has turned her life around. On social media, she shares glimpses of her new life, photos of her baby shower, updates on her journey, and a carefully crafted image that contrasts with her past. But behind the perfect posts and the rebranded identity, one has to wonder, is this new version of Gypsy real, or is it just another chapter in her carefully constructed narrative?
Hey everybody. So this is day 2 after my memoir, My Time to Stand, has been released to bookstores and wherever books are sold. I am so proud to be holding this book right now. And whoever has read it already, I hope that you receive the message. This is not a true crime book. This is a book about survival and hardship and overcoming massive amounts of trauma. To say that this book is just a book is not, it's very, very much misrepresented. This is not a book. This is my entire life in pages. When I started working on this book with Melissa Moore and Michelle Matrachani, 2 amazing women, amazing writers, I had such a wonderful time working with them, brainstorming, and it's really a talent to be able to bring the emotions of what a trauma survivor has to go through and overcome and push past into words. That is incredibly difficult because no one can know the emotions felt by a victim unless you are in that situation or have been there. And so for us to brainstorm together and kind of figure out how do we want to put this all together, how do we want to framework this, is amazing. And I think we did an amazing job. The things that I talk about in this book are things that I don't get asked in interviews. I don't get asked how scared I was in certain situations. I don't get asked why didn't I just run away? I don't get asked that stuff. And I think even if I told them why, they wouldn't really understand. So it's extremely important to put into words for readers when they are reading my story and when my story is told. The reasons, the emotions, the restrictions put on me, and put on victims. So I think that this book is ultimately the thing that I needed to have happened in my life because I held on to that grief and that pain for so long. And this is a healing book. This is about letting go of my past and finally pushing towards my future. And I hope that if anyone is in my shoes or the shoes that I was in, if they are experiencing trauma, if they are experiencing abuse, that this book will show that there is hope, there is life beyond abuse. I'm not going to say that how I gained my freedom was right, because it wasn't. And I talk about that in the book. You know, I absolutely have a life of regrets. I'm not perfect. I've made really bad choices in my life. But that's what makes me human. And I think that we all have a sense of feeling like maybe we're not worthy of being loved. Maybe we're not worthy of a better life beyond abuse. And that's simply not true. So I really, really, really just hope that the message of this book is conveyed to everyone in the best way possible. And and I just really hope that when you read this, if you are a victim of abuse, you feel like you are not alone. And you are loved. So to everyone out there that can relate to feeling not worthy, this book is for you.
Gypsy isn't just the subject of a tragic story, she's a convicted criminal. And while she didn't physically kill her mother, she masterminded her death. Now, as she carefully curates her public image, the consequences of her actions are still haunting those she left behind. Nicholas Gaudejohn, manipulated by Gypsy into committing a crime he never should have been involved in, is serving the life sentence. The loss for Dee Dee's family is immeasurable, a pain that will never go away. But what's even more disturbing is Gypsy's attempt to rewrite her own history. It's not just a quest for redemption. It's a strategy to turn herself into a victim, the survivor who overcame her torment. The carefully curated posts on her social media, it's all part of a bigger plan to make us forget the truth. Gypsy's not a hero. She's a manipulator, and she's still playing the game. This case isn't just about a controlling mother or a tragic love story. It's about accountability. Gypsy Rose Blanchard isn't the victim she wants us to believe. She's someone who knows how to play the system and get the public on her side. So, the next time you see her social media post glorifying her as a survivor, remember this. Behind every carefully crafted image, there's a truth that's far darker than she wants you to know. Was Gypsy a victim, or was she always the mastermind? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video.